it may be a D2C conference and we may be called D2C Live, but we're actually going to talk about the high street and Omnichannel. So I'll get you to introduce yourselves, what you do and where you do it, starting with you.
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Celia, one of the co-founders of Reia, and we make refillable natural self-care for the body and home, and soon to be hair. And we launched about 4 years ago. We are a D2C business, but we also are expanding our B2B arm, which is where my offline part of the work comes in.
Hi, my name is Rehab. I am from Sendcloud. We are a shipping solution. We do everything from checkout all the way to return. So think about your post-purchase. That's what we do, and we'll get into it in a little bit.
And Rehab's really good at making shipping sexy. That's her one-liner, so I'm looking forward to that. Celia, to start with you. So, I mean, we went out for dinner last night, didn't we? We had a nice little chat. And you spoke about stepping away from growth at all costs with digital marketing. What's driving that shift for Reia?
I should probably start with the fact that we never held the belief that you should grow at all costs. It wasn't something we necessarily had to step away from. But I think when we launched 4 years ago, and I still feel this way most days, we're in this sort of rat race of D2C growth expectations. And there's this kind of mentality of either needing a bucket load of money to throw it at the wall and figure out on the other side how that's going to be realistic and sustainable, or it's this pressure to drive your costs, your COGS down to give you enough breathing room to give yourself the allowable CAC that you can achieve. And for a business like ours where, you know, ethical sourcing, sustainable practices and quality of product is so important, not just to us in terms of our kind of founding principles, but we increasingly are seeing that that's important. We know it's important to our customers as well. Those two things are at direct odds with each other. And frankly, our budgets were always modest, so we were never going to win at the first thing either. And so we just have increasingly realized that we need to be thinking more diversely about how we grow, not putting so much pressure to jump into that growth at all costs mentality. It never really sat with us from the start, but now we're getting more comfortable with moving away from it.
Nice. And Riri. So omnichannel, well, contrary to popular belief, omnichannel growth doesn't just end at checkout. How important is the delivery experience in shaping loyalty?
This is a huge topic. I think we can have a whole session about this. But really, when you think about checkout is not the end of the marathon. It's probably the midway of the marathon. So when you think about your checkout converts your first sale. Delivery earns your second. So if you're thinking about your cost of acquisition and all the money you spent on the marketing side of things, whether you have the budget or not for it, but the delivery experience, we did the research with about like 3,000 of our customers. 79% of them say they will actually drop down from checkout if the delivery experience from a multi-carrier strategy. If you don't have the right carriers at checkout, they probably will not buy your product. If you're not transparent about your delivery times, they won't check out. So the delivery experience, even though it's not the sexiest topic, it actually has become one of the most draining for a brand when it comes to retaining your customers. So I would say the delivery experience is probably one of the most important post-purchase experiences that you need to focus on. And you think about it, I know we're talking about operations. From an operational standpoint, most of your tickets from a support perspective are actually, I would say it was like around 80% of them is actually coming from Wismo, so where is my order? And if you don't engage and inform and be proactive with your customers around that delivery experience, you bet you will not see them again. So I think delivery experience is super crucial to the customer loyalty and the retention element for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, at Rainy City we design websites, and the amount of times you hand over a shiny new website, and I think people think, oh great, done now. You're not done. It's a living thing. Celia, so just briefly touched on moving offline a little bit. How has doing that helped reduce customer acquisition costs, and what offline strategies have delivered the best results?
That is my marketing plan in a nutshell. No, we really, it has been about reducing the decision-making cycle of our customers. What we kind of realized was that our costs were consistently really high online, online advertising, I'm talking about mostly, but across the board. And so we knew we had to start thinking more broadly, but it's hard to look elsewhere in terms of when your budgets are tight and you need effective ROI and highly measurable, it can be difficult to obviously move outside of that. For us, trial, getting the product in the hands of customers was everything, and that kind of gave us a natural step into moving offline. We started with sampling. It's obviously something that I'm sure a lot of you guys have been doing throughout your careers, but for us, it started with in-person sales, actually using our own database, partner databases, to make sure that we not only got our customers to try the product, but it was delivered to their home. That was actually a massive unlock for us, was actually reaching people through whatever channels, getting our product into their home, sample size, getting them trialing it. What we saw over introducing that strategy was a 17% conversion rate, and that still maintains today. It's like a consistently really strong channel for us. In addition, and this is our biggest step into offline, is hospitality and amenities. So our consumer business is still predominantly direct to consumer, but we've built out now, and this is a massive focus for us moving forward, a B2B strategy in selling into hospitality and our amenity service. And that has the double-ended strategy for us. There's a commercial gain, obviously it brings in additional revenue, but the biggest unlock to fuel our D2C growth has been that brand association that we can build through those partnerships, being in the right places, and having also that sensorial experience that we can deliver through our partners that we can't do online. That has been huge, and like I said, taking that and finding new avenues for us to do that through in-person sales, hospitality, community events, ambassador events, partner events, anything that we can do. We are doing it in order to create that more sensorial experience, introduce people to our brand in that way. It's dramatically reduced the number of touch points that we require to convert our customers, and our CAC overall has been reduced by 50%, by half.
That's amazing. 17% conversion. Wow.
Yeah, it's bloody good product.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of questions in that break. Rehab, I've got a two-factor question for you. We'll start with the first bit. Are customers leaning more towards home delivery or lockers, and how should brands decide what to prioritise?
All right. I think between out of home is actually picking up, and it's just off the back of COVID. People are back shopping. Also, there's other factors that are impacting that out of home. I don't know if you guys read the news, but there's a lot of theft for home delivery, and it's actually quite huge in the UK. So from a consumer standpoint, they're starting to lean more towards out of home, but still the home delivery is still the number one. I think where you would see the out of home is where you have the communities where it's quite congested. So you have your lockers, your Pudos, and you can definitely see a pickup on that. In terms of how brands should choose, I think you always need to be consumer first, right? Where are you going to meet your consumer? You can basically meet them at home. You can meet them out of home. So it's really about giving the options at checkout. You also need to relieve the responsibility towards the consumer rather than the brand. And if you choose and give them the option to choose between out of home or home delivery, then the responsibility falls on them, given the fact that you've given them all the expectations around that. So I always say, think about your checkout. At minimum, you want to have 3 carriers at your checkout that can basically speak to the majority of your customers. So it's not one or the other. It's definitely a combination of all.
And with that, how can proactive tracking and I'm going to use the buzzword AI. I wonder how many times it's mentioned today. How can proactive tracking and AI-powered notifications reduce that anxiety and protect the customer experience when things do sometimes go wrong?
Yeah, somebody talked about getting into bed with partners. I also think about the consumer side of things, right? Like, think about it as a relationship. If you send a message and nobody responds to you, like, anxiety just increases, right? You're just like, what's wrong? Did I say something wrong? Did something happen? Why aren't they responding? It's been 2 hours. Like, it just creates this huge amount of anxiety that could actually be subsidized just by communicating and engaging. And again, as a brand, if you're consumer first, you just want to be proactive with them, which kind of ties into the proactive element of tracking. So when we're speaking from a tracking perspective, and this is where AI kind of comes into play, shameless plug here, but we've recently had an integration with Gorgeous, and what that kind of helps brands do. So let's say something goes wrong with your order, and you know maybe the address is wrong or it wasn't scanned at the right time. Based on that data, we can already know that that product is not going to reach tomorrow. So rather than waiting for the customer to reach out to you and say, hey, where is my order? You're like, okay, let me be proactive. Dear customer, I know it hasn't been scanned at the depot, so this is not going to arrive tomorrow. We're sorry about that. Here's a 5% discount on your next purchase. That relieves the anxiety that customers feel, and it increases your loyalty because you're actually proactive in communicating, and things do go wrong, and that's just the reality of the business that we're in, or in fact any business that we're in. Things do go wrong, but as long as you're being open and transparent about that, you will retain your customers and they will come back. If you just kind of leave them in the dark and wait for DHL to send their email after 3 days, you're probably not going to keep your customers around for long.
People just like to know where their stuff's at.
Yeah.
Even if it's going to take a week, at least you know it's going to take a week.
I mean, we're all guilty of it in this room.
Celia, to finish off, how do you measure the brand impact of in-person interactions, and how does that influence your marketing spend?
So, obviously, the sales is number one. So, in-person sales, that's how we measure the effectiveness, like the overall cost of acquisition, and our conversion rate with each kind of activation or with our steady in-person sales strategy. But more than that, we think about other lead generation. So, for example, we might do a small little market on one day in Richmond, and maybe we only make 4 sales that day, but the head of buying of beauty from John Lewis comes and says, oh, this is so great, I'd love to buy it. And there's value attached to that potentially for us. So we think about those other leads either in terms of connections that you can make, partners that you can gain, and particularly with like hospitality and kind of brands that the outreach that we see, the uplift in that following any of these in-person activations. And that actually is, like, it sounds so simple, and how could you measure that? But for us, we really see spikes in inbound engagement from different partners, likewise with press or that kind of thing. And then finally, I guess, like the brand recognition as well. So we also think about, you know, when we start, if we've done a certain partnership with someone, a content partnership, in-person community event activation, maybe we haven't made any sales from it, but we always see that longer tail of other brands wanting to partner with us, which gives us access to further sales through our sampling. So it's that like kind of long tail that we can often, we're pretty rigorous about measuring it, but obviously it always comes back to sales in the end.
I think like what you both pretty much summarised is that it's not about picking offline or online. You have to actually connect all of them touch points. Well, thank you guys so much. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of questions in the break, but thank you.
Thank you.